Welcome, guys, to the Backyard Barn Insect Podcast. How y'all doing?
It's about the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Please do not say that.
It's cricket time, man.
It's about the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
My question is this. This is my question for the week.
All right.
What's going to change now?
The only thing that's going to change is what we do.
Is it? Because I'm not necessarily going to change anything.
I mean, how much we engage with the powers that be.
Oh. Okay. What I mean by what's going to change, meaning how is this going to be different from the past 4 years? What's that going to look like in 2021?
I think we need to learn the lessons of Obama and Bernie Sanders, and they both have said this. Bernie said this directly, and Obama has said this, maybe to my knowledge, indirectly, is that it's not enough to elect somebody or to support somebody. We need people on the ground and voters that vote every time and take action and really care about this. One person is not going to fix this job. If people voted for Biden and thought that we're going to have this big seismic shift, I don't see how that
I disagree.
Fixes anything.
All right, so yeah, this is the whole, what did you think voting for whoever party would do? First off, let's talk about clean energy. Let's talk about actually trying to protect the planet, which is our previous episode. Trump wasn't about any of that. He didn't give two fucks. Biden seems like he cares about the earth. He seems like he wants to push America into the forefront of clean energy, just like all of the other strong liberal countries. What about that? Like, do you not think that's not something already in the right direction?
No.
Why not?
Because it's not that I don't think that we can certainly do it. I think there are plans in place that will allow us to do it. I think that Biden wants to do it. I mean, he said he wants to do it, right? But my thing is this. What is the intention?
Well, that's a pessimistic view.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I would like to think that people we elect will say what they're going to do.
Yeah, well, all right, let's say it like this. Clear cut. Do you think Biden will be a better president than Trump was?
Do I think Biden will be a better president than Trump?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, where do you think they will overlap? Do you think that there's anything that Trump may have done better or good or already did better than what any Democrat has done before?
Yes. What I think he does well is that he taps into a certain psychology that we all share.
Right, but
You mean like policy?
Yeah, like tapping into the racist undertones of America isn't necessarily making America better.
It's not that he taps into the racist undertones, is that those are his supporters, right? And he's able to tap into that. I mean, that's just what he's good at. He's good at getting attention.
Yeah,
and it just so happens his branding is one of that, right? So we really struggle with that with the Democratic Party. We really struggle of having a cohesive voice.
I think we're getting better.
We certainly are.
Now, I think at this time while we're recording, we don't know who the next president is. But it's leaning toward Biden at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have more faith in America after this election?
Not really.
Why not?
That's a very marginal victory if he does win.
That's very true. That's very true.
Very thin line. And he will be, if he is elected, one of the few presidents that did not take Ohio, which for a long time was a precedent that in order to win.
Well, your favorite word is unprecedented, so there you go. But
fair word, yeah.
He hasn't, from what we can see now, it looks like he's going to be able to take a few states that were in contention last time.
Correct. Yeah.
But Trump won those over. But now he's been able to win over the blue collar workers of the North.
Yeah, and a number of other districts in the South, Texas and Georgia. I mean, that's not to say that he's accomplished a lot in terms of changing. I won't say him personally, but the Democratic Party has changed those demographics and who turns out to vote in those precincts, right? Especially in Texas. I mean, it was actually concern that Texas would not have Republican electoral votes. So the fact that there was even concern is very fascinating to me.
I'm trying to figure out where I want to go with this because now that we potentially have a new president, but we still have a considerable portion of America voting for Trump. And it's not just white people. It's everybody. How is that? And this is the thing that we talk about with like the undertone of how he's able to connect with people. He was able to drum up his base of the silent majority. But in that silent majority, he started to gain traction in minority communities.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest things was because of the crime bills that Biden put his name all over in the early 90s. And he was able to put Biden in a bad light. Now, my thing was when we were talking about this last week, he started to get endorsements by African American hip hop artists.
Lil Wayne, yeah.
And then
Ice Cube.
Lil Pump, not even Ice Cube, but he was talking to him, right?
Well, yeah. And 50 Cent, yeah.
I had a feeling that it's weird. We already know that the Democratic Party only needs us for elections. And then afterwards, it's whatever. But now we have a black female vice president, potentially. And black people still didn't vote for her. Not saying the majority didn't, but some didn't even take that into account. So yeah, I really need to look at these polls and look at the demographic of people who voted for Trump.
I would say that's fair. I also am of the mind that I feel like with regard to how we shape the Democratic Party, right? If we really think that it's going to be something that is for us, right? Whatever party it is, but it just seems to be that for our similar mindedness, it would be the Democratic Party, right? I don't want to put all the impetus on black people to like have to vote, right? I feel like all the time that seems to be the election is constantly like trying to blame black people for like, well, why are they not voting for Democratic or whatever? There's always like, I feel like this need to push that, when I think the real very interesting thing was the following. I worked at the polls on election season, and I had 2 jobs. The first job was the job I enjoyed the most, which was guiding people to the voting booth, right? And we had 10 voting booths, and I was also in charge of wiping them down, for COVID prevention. People need to feel safe when they vote and have to wipe the pens down. You should feel safe when you vote. So guiding people to the voting booths and talking to people and keeping it running, and people can get in and get out. The other job I had was, I would say, and that was probably about 70% of my day, was doing that on my feet for 16 hours. But the other job I had was sitting in front of a polling book, which has information of everybody. Every, their name, their address, their date of birth, their affiliation, their precinct, whatever. And this still surprises me. I don't know why it does, but it does. The amount of white women Republicans. I don't know why that still shocks me. And here's the thing.
You're about to go there?
Here's the thing that kind of I'm just unclear about. We all stereotype.
Yeah.
Right? And within stereotypes there are other kind of stereotypes, right? So it's very easy to see on, like the Daily Show when they find these particular white women at these Trump rallies. Okay. I'm not talking about that. That's very...
Not like the ones that have like President Trump can grab my...
Yeah.
Okay.
I almost have like, not respect, but like I appreciate that they are at least forthright with how they feel. If that makes sense. I like, if you're going to be a certain way, then just, hey, if you really acknowledge it, cool. Great. Unfortunately, Kelly, I sometimes, like a lot of people against stereotype, I play this mind game with myself. I'm like, I'm going to try to figure out who these people are going to vote for. It's kind of fucked up, but fuck it. I did it anyway. And to a great surprise to me, a lot of younger white women, Republican, families voted together too. And what's interesting is what you would think, say 30 to 40-year-old white women, that they may have been there with their husbands and their 2 kids or whatever. And they didn't even, you can even stereotype about the way they dress and stuff like that, these families. But I caught myself being surprised when I thought like, okay, like they might be Democratic. And to my great surprise, it was like, oh, you're registered Republican. Again, it's not to say that you're not going to vote for Biden, right? You're registered Republican, and maybe you haven't voted in 20 years. I don't fucking know. But it was just a little disconcerting. But, we see it in the media about how a large majority of white women had voted for Trump in 2016. And there just seems to be some animosity for a woman who wants to vote for another woman. I didn't say it. I'm just saying.
Okay. I mean, yeah, you don't have to try to be afraid.
Right.
Hillary Clinton is a white woman, and white women didn't vote for another white woman.
Well, that's kind of my point here, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why it shocked me as much as it did, but I was like, I don't get it.
Bro, feminism is a tricky fucking subject.
I don't get it.
It's not for us to debunk and to
Correct.
try to figure out.
Exactly.
So
That's correct.
I'm gonna just leave that there.
That's fine.
But yeah, speaking on that a little bit, why do you think that certain women would vote Republican?
Well, especially with older women, it's typically been however my husband votes. I'm going to agree with that. Keep a happy household. It's very rare, but it's always fascinating when I see it. You typically might see like a Republican father and a Democratic wife, right? But you don't see that too often anymore. But it's very interesting when I hear about it on the news. Like, how does that household get along? I don't know. I really am curious to know.
Do you think that Democrats and Republicans have what's the biggest difference? Do we have like different moral obligations?
Yes. There was, and I'm gonna butcher this. I can't remember the study. There was a psychologist, and he was trying to dissect what was important to Democratic and Republican voters. One of the things that typically Democratic voters do not value is family. That is not a big issue for them.
Ironic.
They don't vote. Democrats do not vote on matters of family issues or things that may impact family.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, things like religion, spirituality, let's say, but you wouldn't lump those two together, but let's say faith-based things, we'll say protection of faith-based things, right? Not something that Democrats typically vote for. There are actually a whole host of things that Republicans value that we just kind of lump together as the morality of the country. Right? We don't view them as separate. They view them as separate.
Or you mean they view them as equal too?
Right.
Okay. Do you have any of those topics?
Do I?
Yeah.
No.
You can't just rattle any of them off? Okay.
I can't think of like, you saying relevance to me?
No, I'm just saying in general.
Not I'm not a Republican voter. I mean, we should talk to a Republican voter and be like that maybe values these things. I don't know. It's a tough one, bro, but I would say it's interesting to try to figure out the mind of a voter. I remember we actually got out early, and probably about 7:45 there was nobody in line. Because typically what happens is people are in line after the polls close, but 7:45 nobody was there. And I remember this one woman had come in, and she was at the voting booth, already filling in the bubbles there on the form, and she left. She said, "I'm not voting," and she left. She was the last person in line, one of the last few in line, and she left. And it was very odd to me that you waited in line all that time. You had the ballot. You were starting to fill it in. And you left. Now, what happened there?
That's what I want to know. That's the whole thing about asking about what's going to happen next. Because everybody, the media, said that it was just going to be a blue wave or whatever the fuck they called it. Okay. It wasn't.
No, I don't think that blue wave. There was 538 Nate Silver, who got a lot of shit for projecting that Hillary Clinton was going to win by like 87% margin to win 2016. And then obviously statistics are not, a golden child. It's not always going to be, right? So
what I was getting at was certain people are torn up about this. And like you just talked about with that lady, what was it that she was fighting while she was filling out the ballot?
Yeah, there was, I really don't know for her, but I would say that there was another example of the families that bring their kids for first-time voters.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, I'm sitting at the polling book, and they're explaining to their daughter in the line, like, what to do, right? And, like, we did the different candidates, and, Trump is Republican, and Joe Biden's a Democrat. First of all, why are you having this conversation in the line? You couldn't have us, like, in a car ride over, at least, like, give his child some time to think about that. But also, can you imagine anything more awkward than trying to make a decision like that in front of your parents? Like, one obviously seemed to me,
yes, I can,
to view, one candidate in favorable.
I can.
You okay?
Your son votes Democrat, and you know your father's Republican.
Mm-hmm.
That's awkward.
That is awkward.
Now, I was just reading something about how they did a poll at like some university, and they said 50% of the students were for reparations or for a lot of liberal stuff. And you should have seen the comments of terrible parents. How did they raise these kids to be whatever? And I'm laughing so hard because I know that somebody's child is in the comments.
Christ.
That somebody's parent is in the comments, and they're talking about their own damn child.
Just trash talking their children. I mean, let your child do what they want to vote for.
Well, the whole thing is, how has this torn up families that Republicans love so much? That's what I'm asking. You get me?
It's almost like a doubling down, because we could have had the same conversation 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
All right. And this will span the test of time. Because when we were starting to get into politics, this shit was starting to brew. It was like still freshly brewed, still bubbling, and
George W. fucking Bush.
You started to, I mean, even slightly after him, with the Tea Party. Tea Party is what really set it off. Although what's interesting is that Lindsey Graham hates Ted Cruz, and I never quite like. And now Lindsey Graham's like he's all in Trump's cock. It's like, okay, that's cool, Lindsey. I appreciate that. But anyway, no, there's something about this idea that, why did you tell your daughter who these candidates were in the line? And that got me thinking. I said, that's why these people sometimes are standing at these polling booths for 10 minutes. Did y'all read the ballot before? I mean,
probably not.
And it's like, if we consider this quote unquote the most important election of our lifetime, and nobody read the ballot, there's a fucking problem right there. Did you read the ballot?
Does that matter? That's why we have the electoral college, theoretically, correct?
Well, if people don't want that, right? If people don't want the electoral college, then it's going to be that much more important when you vote, not only for presidential election, for whatever is on the ballot, but these referendums. People don't read the referendums. They don't know where all this funding goes. They just say, referendums say, we're getting this X amount of money and we're funding, whatever. Fucking lollipop factories. I don't know. Something stupid. And people don't know where it goes.
Just say construction.
Construction. Construction management facilities for the Department of Recreation. It's like, okay, but do I know who works there? Do I know what they're doing? Like, what are the projects that are coming up? What's being built? Well, how do I know the money that I'm allowing my state government to borrow from the federal government is really going to something that I care about? Don't know. You didn't read it. You didn't research it. Could have been. And it's like, when do we get these ballots in the sample ballot in the mail? It's like weeks in advance, like
months.
What's up? I mean, that's like.
Wait, are you trying to say that the everyday voter isn't informed about a lot of things?
No.
I mean, that's life, bro.
Not to Not to keep bringing it up, but
that's life. That's
well.
There you go.
I think that's kind of my point, though. It's like if people really want these things to change, you're gonna have to read the fucking ballot.
Well, Frank, we've had 4 years to show certain people that Trump is not capable of holding the presidency
or reading.
And we've had an entirely new election, and he almost won again. So what does that fucking tell you?
What does that mean?
Yeah. That's my question for the day. Shit ain't. You would think that after these 4 years, it would have woken enough people up to say he shouldn't be president.
There is something that Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, and we'll have to share this link. It was a podcast. It's not Radiolab, but it's the host of Radiolab. He had a spinoff on the Supreme Court. This must have been like 5 years ago. And I remember her talking about the American pendulum. And the American pendulum is, we have an election, it swings a little bit more liberal, and it swings maybe a little bit more conservative, and it keeps swinging. It just keeps going back and forth. But each time, like a pendulum does, depending on what height you start at, right? One would like to think it's going to eventually stop. But in this analogy that she was conjuring, I feel like it's like speeding up, like the swings are getting more violent. But we don't really change that whole much. And I think that was kind of my point with Texas and Georgia. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, we flipped some counties or we flipped some precincts, but, he didn't win Texas. The fact that he won some precincts is important.
But that just means
it's shifting, but it's not like
more urban areas. And that's the thing that we're not talking about here. These urban areas are just getting bigger, and it's allowing more people to flock there and become more liberal in certain views.
That's true.
I would like to think that one day we should have a president that will shock all of us into saying, holy fuck, this one party is corrupt as shit. Mm-hmm. And you need to wake up and see that they have been lying to you ever since you could breathe. And maybe they're just going to keep doing it. And maybe they should just, just stop. But I don't think a lot of people consider the Republican Party as the ones full of liars. I think they just think like that's all politicians.
Well, you say one. I would say both parties.
Whoa, let me finish.
All right.
Blatant liars.
Blatantly.
Lie directly to your face. Not the low, nice old, yeah, we'll do something for you, never do it. I'm talking about Trump. Do you condone white supremacy? Mm-hmm. And he says, who do you want me to condone? That's blatantly lying directly to everybody's face. All right, give me a second, and I'm going to read some of the most current tweets by our president. We have claimed, for electoral vote purposes, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which won't allow legal observers, the state of Georgia, and the state of North Carolina, each one of which has a big Trump lead. Additionally, we hereby claim the state of Michigan, if in fact, it says official sources may not have called the race when this was tweeted. What does it say?
Twitter is probably flagging. Yeah.
All right, we are winning Pennsylvania big, but the PA Secretary of State just announced that there are millions of ballots left to be counted.
That's true.
Wow, it looks like Michigan has now found the ballots necessary to keep a wonderful young man, John James, in the U.S. Senate. What a terrible thing is happening. They are finding Biden votes all over the place. In Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So bad for our country. How come every time they count mail-in ballot dumps, they are so devastating in their percentages and power of destruction? And this was the one that I love so much. This was 19 hours ago. I will be making a statement tonight. A big win.
You know, there's something to be said, and sometimes I don't even know what to say, because it's such an affront to where we are or where we've come from, where the idea that we had some decency 4 years prior for the 2016 election.
I would disagree. I feel like Republicans had never played by the rules.
That's not what I mean. I mean, not that they have not lied, but that there was a decency from Obama's administration, right?
Okay.
That just like, you read those tweets. Can you imagine if Obama said some shit like that?
Oh,
right. So that's what we look for in a leader. We don't look to a leader to tell us all of this, not only untrue shit, but in a manner that gives the person that may support them a lot of anxiety.
You say anxiety, I say motivation to do something about it, right?
Anxiety does not mean that you don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Anxiety can be led to anger and then
Paranoia.
action. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, I'll give it to you, and I think that's it right there.
But it's that base tone, like the bottom is that anxiety that builds up.
And this is the whole thing that I was saying about earlier, is that if you still vote Democrat after this, and you see how he blatantly uses his words in a way to sow doubt into the democratic system that we've already lived in and hopefully trying to maintain, it seems like democracy only works when it's for him.
Right.
But in the moment, it's not working for him. And Bernie said it. Trump will scratch and claw and litigate his way into a win, if possible. Now, the amount of people I saw today on Fox News, Blue Lives Matter, other various pages that I follow on Facebook that are very conservative, deep red, it's the running theme of these ballots. These mail-in ballots are corrupt. There's somebody writing them in, filling them out, and not counting them. The thing that I'm worried about is in the next coming months, how the transition of power, if Biden wins, how will that go? We already heard about some Proud Boys getting stabbed in DC. And they said it was by some Black Lives Matter. All right, so where is this going now? What do you think we could ever come back to who we are? Do you think we could ever bring this union back to one whole party?
I do. It's gonna take some work.
On whose part?
Everybody.
Well, I'm gonna say it like this: we saved America by voting for Biden. That's how I believe.
Okay.
I believe that, not saying that Biden is perfect, but Biden and Kamala represent not the political realm, but how can I say this? a more well thought out plan, and one that includes us all. And the craziest part is Biden had a conference and he came together and said, no matter if you voted for me or not, I'm going to fight for you. Trump never said shit like that.
Right.
Biden's already trying to bring the country back together. Trump is trying to break it apart now because it's falling apart for him. So how many people are going to listen to Biden? How many people do you really believe are going to actually believe what's going on? Because, and one of our friends, our mutual friends, brought this up. Biden won a lot of the swing states, but a lot of the senators and representatives stayed Republican. So they willingly voted for Biden and then willingly went back to vote Republican for their representatives.
Right.
So it was a conscious decision to vote for him. So if you do that, are you showing that there's more power in the Senate and the House than the presidency? Because, I mean, everybody's going to be happy about this, but at the end of the day, we need to come back in next 2 years. We need to come 2 years from now and actually finish the job.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the overarching theme, that was the lesson of Obama's presidency. That's the lesson that Bernie Sanders talked about, is we cannot simply just do this one time, no matter who it's for, right? It's for Joe Biden this time. Okay, great. That if we really want to slowly and gradually, because that's unfortunately how the American political system works with the pendulum, right? It's a gradual shift, right? There will be no seismic shift.
Well, guess what? Trump was our seismic shift, and I don't see it as a pendulum anymore.
You view it as a seismic shift. I don't think it was. It unearthed a lot of things that people that especially have not voted ever, people that never voted in their life, voted for him because they felt like the political system didn't represent them. That's why I keep seeing Trumplicans and not Republicans, right?
Yeah. It's weird. I mean, to just think that a person who would vote for Trump doesn't feel like somebody represents them. And I mean, everything around them is meant for them most likely, but I guess they're feeling like they're losing the country.
Yeah.
To who? Okay. But this election was way too close for me. This dragging along of mail-in ballots will be the stain on this presidential election, because there will always be an asterisk next to this where every Republican can say, oh, it was just fraud. Now, knowing that factually voter fraud is very rare, but for a president to be talking about it, he even said it before the election that it was going to be a big thing. But it wasn't a big thing when he became president in 2016. So it's just very contradictory. I don't know. We're just going to have to see.
I don't know if this election felt as emotional to me as 2016.
No, this was just like washing your hands of sin. That's it.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned to you earlier that, you know, again, we don't know yet, but if Biden wins, that I have like a deep sigh of just like, it's a relief of just, I'm just expulsion of all this kind of, we'll say, negative energy or whatever, right? All this built upness.
Now, me, I don't know. I think I'm actually going to feel worse than before, because I know all of those people with those red hats are just going to take him off and go back into the world.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that at all. I mean, in the moment that we just know he got elected.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yes.
There is that. I'm not saying we need to sigh and like, okay, let's go back to no. And I think, you asked me earlier, are we returning to something that we did before with Obama's presidency? And no, it's totally different.
Well, I don't see it as a pendulum anymore. That was the guillotine. That's it. Cut the head off of the serpent. Done.
I don't agree with it.
You don't have to, because this is what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Now we have 4 documented years of Republicans pandering to some would say, very overtly racist president who only really cared about his cronies. That's documented now, is it not?
That's true.
And everything that they said and did during those 4 years will be in the history books.
That's true.
We have the ability to go back in time and read these things and look at these votes and make them pay. And that's what I am dedicating the rest of my life to, is making these men and women pay for what they did. Because that's it for me. Like, you know how people say, oh, who you vote for isn't a death sentence or it isn't a cancel culture. It shouldn't be. But the people who actually did it, that's where I draw the line. Those people who sat at that desk every day and supported this man. Now he's gone. I'm going to watch them backtrack. I'm going to watch them go back into their little cave or whatever you want to call it. Because they were very proud at one point.
Yep.
Right? We talked about how voter suppression wasn't really a thing. You said you hadn't seen it.
Initially. But I have seen it since, yes.
I'm sure you've seen it now. What way can we just let people know that what just happened is what has always happened in America? And how that is like the bread and butter of American culture. And I'm speaking directly to voter suppression. And how, I don't want to say both parties don't do it, but there's majority one party who does it. And I don't know, I'm just tired of it. I'm just tired of not being able to. When will people just say, like, this shit is over with? Like, we're better than that. We've gone through enough pain. We've gone through enough suffering to just end this. Because we still have people out there that think that the virus isn't real. And that it's just like the common flu. And have been fed this propaganda to their detriment.
I think this can all be easily remedied. See, and this is the thing. I can't do what you do. So when you talk about you dedicating your life to that cause, mine is kind of the same, but a little bit different. Mine is, I worked at the polls, and I have this kind of sense like,
oh, you work the polls, or you work the polls?
I mean, hey, I got a stripper name. I can't say it on the podcast. But,
okay, all right.
Look, I feel that I have kind of
milk chocolate.
Hey, that's pretty good. I like that one. That's not bad. Somebody gave me a stripper name when I used to work at a restaurant. I can't remember it though. Fuck. I really wish I could remember. I can't.
Shout out to Big Black.
Who dat?
Oh.
You see, it's like very disappointed look on his face. But.
Yeah. No, it just made me think about Robin Big. It was one of my favorite TV shows.
I know.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's not your.
That's fine. I mean, that's kind of, yeah, I'd like if you share with me, but it's cool if you can share it with me later. Here's my thing. Working the polls, I feel like I am a watchdog almost, and have this kind of reverence for these institutions that people ultimately, yes, people that showed up to the polls. I saw a lot of MAGA hats. Didn't see a single Biden-Harris hat.
Do they have those?
I don't know. Or like not even a hat, but like some kind of, which to my knowledge, I think you're not supposed to actually have any. You're not supposed to have any political propaganda.
That sounds like some white shit.
Right?
So, yeah.
And when you come in to vote, you're supposed to be whatever, right? That's not my point here. My point here is this. You're talking about going after, right, and kind of righting the wrongs. I'm more of like, we need to build up these institutions. And I'll say the following. There's no reason that when I'm working a poll book and you need to sign the stub that prints out that shows your precinct and what ballot type you get, right? In order to sanitize those pens, there's no reason why I have a paper towel where I put some hand sanitizer on it and I have to rub the pens around in the hand sanitizer and then wipe it off with a paper towel.
It sounds efficient.
Why do I not have any Lysol wipes or, not Lysol, but whatever, wipes?
I mean, because that's what Lysol wipes are, though.
Right, but there's no supplies. Like, why are we having something that is so important, that is so underfunded?
Well, ask your president, Frank.
Well,
right.
You see what I'm getting at? This does not begin with him. Right?
Well, I'm saying like, let's say like this. I asked you, were you a keeper of the keys? Were you a whistleblower? Mm-hmm. So you don't want to use those words. You want to say you are a gatekeeper,
watchdog. I don't know.
Watchdog.
I'm a whole host of things. I don't know, Kelly. You know.
All right, so you're just a snitch.
Yeah. This motherfucker voted twice. You're out. I feel that these institutions, they work inefficiently. You shouldn't have to wait in line for hours and hours to vote. It should be so efficient. The only reason I feel like, and I'm not trying to brag, but when I was directing people to the voting booths, people got in, they got out. And I kept it moving, people helped, of course, but I felt like I was working at the bagel shop again, working a deli counter. And people, the customers, I don't even tell them people have a nice day, like I would if I worked in a restaurant and I was a waiter. And people deserve that kind of decency and humanity. Now, I want to preserve that decency among people that I might not agree with. That's the important thing to me. But ultimately, everybody's got to vote. And how do we allow people to... We don't want people to intimidate people. But these institutions as they are, like being able to vote, it's important to improve upon. And right now, it's just not. If it's been this way for as long as it has been, and this is 2020, and if there's not enough supplies to go around during a pandemic, then something's fucking wrong here.
Okay.
So that's kind of one of my things that I want to do now.
So you just like managing shit?
I do, but okay. I also don't want to do that. I also want to be the guy that is in charge of poll books and make sure all the ballots are there, nothing's going wrong,
Yeah, that's anybody in any senior level manager. Yeah. You don't call them a manager,
whatever,
right? You call them whatever else. Yeah. But I understand what you're saying. I'm saying for me that when I say kill your masses, I don't mean physically kill them, but kill their careers.
Sure.
End it. Right? Guillotine. You walk up to the plank. We all put up thumbs down, thumbs up. Your shit's done. you know?
But we don't really have any concept of political suicide anymore.
And that's the scary thing. Like,
you can say anything.
Yeah, but who started that? When did that really become a thing? Because I know for a fact that if a black dude did half of the shit Trump did, no fucking way he would still be president. Say if Obama just had businesses that he kept in the family while he was president and appointed his children as not cabinet members, but whatever the fuck they were.
Let me put it to you this way. This shit is so fucked up, Kelly, that if I think about it, I'm gonna be real depressed.
Sorry.
So I must be real with you for a second, because I think like a lot of people, if they allow the entire weight, this man, and not to say other administrations didn't do this, but this is maybe one of the few times that we had members of Congress go down to these, what should we call them? Jails, holding pens of children that were separated from their families. And we saw AOC go down there, right? And just connect with people and really feel them out. Whereas we have Pence go down there and he doesn't even look at them. So there is the amount of immorality, the weight of that, right? So you talked a lot about what it feels like, right, to be a voter and realize that this shit fucking sucks. But I think if we as voters think about that all the time, the shit will get to us. But it's certainly important to think about it on an emotional level, because me simply intellectualizing about it, right, is important too. And we need to have a kind of a both going into this. But if I let the weight of the atrocities, as an atrocity, the atrocity of what has allowed to occur, I would have a lot of seismic shifts in how I function in the world.
Right.
You know, I quit my job, become a political activist, and who fucking knows, right? I can't let that get to me all the time, because I need to have some kind of function. And I think that's the big disparity, is that we are not allowing ourselves to feel the weight right now. I'm not. I'm certain a lot of people are not, because nobody's really talking about it, right? Everybody's exhausted. And so the idea that you would attempt to be emotional about this election in the same way that 2016 happened, where people were very emotional. I remember it very well, being in college, and they offered safe spaces and people could talk about it. I'm not saying it doesn't happen now, but I think the idea that people would seek that out right now, people are done. And I don't blame them. But yes, certainly people need to feel some kind of emotional weight to analyze what happened.
I'm going to say this. I heard you. Nothing about what you said.
I'm gaslighting myself, right?
You are.
But don't mistake me. I know a lot of people that are also doing it. It doesn't make it right, but...
Well, can we just say how America is just one big ass gaslight?
Yeah. Well,
all right.
That's true. Yeah.
But what I'm going to say is you need to accept it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the thing is, I feel like certain people have already done that.
Mm-hmm.
And certain people have already seen it.
Mm.
And these 4 years, I feel like if that hasn't shown you what America really is, then it's too late for you. And I know in the past I've talked about coming together, but I can't lie. This election pissed me the fuck off.
Is it possible that we've been abused for 4 years?
We have been raped
No.
of a lot of things. I would say for a lot of people, they've lost all hope. When he got elected, hope was gone. When he got elected, I know there were millions of people who were in fear of being deported. Millions of people in fear of losing their health care. Millions of people in fear of losing their family members. And all of that fucking happened.
I didn't realize the impact of the election to the extent until I started dating a Nigerian woman who goes to school here. And I don't know if you recall
I remember
when COVID first began, right? There was the idea that if you could not attend college in person, even though colleges had said we're going online, exclusively online, that you'd be deported. So it's very difficult for me to explain to people who are not impacted that way what that feels like.
Yeah.
I don't feel the impact of what she is experiencing, right? Because that's unique to her, but nevertheless, I love her. And so the idea that somebody I love will be deported is, it's not a good feeling. And it's difficult to explain that to a family member who may support, it's difficult to articulate.
Yeah,
that.
like she came from a shithole country,
right.
You say that, and I know a few people, and one person in particular was one of my sister's best friends. And they had a going away party because she was one of the dreamers that got deported. Right?
Yeah.
She was a senior at Morgan State, and she got deported because of Trump. Let's not even get into the whole virus that was 2020. But yeah, this election is just the icing on the cake of fucked upness. And we all knew it was going to be like this. But I just hope that in this happening, in this way, enough people can see what we've been seeing for so long. And it's not like we're losing faith in America, but at a certain point, like I say, a hard head makes a soft ass.
Oh yeah, this is what I wanted to say earlier, because now I'm starting to see more of this too now, is the idea that people want to leave.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's talk about that one.
I almost forgot about that.
Let's talk about that, because I wrote on Ben Shapiro's page. He was talking about the polls, right? And saying how Michigan was fake. I said, if Trump loses, you all can leave. It's fine. You can leave. It's your American, it's your right. You can go wherever you want. If you don't feel safe here.
Please tell me some of the responses you got back.
Nobody responded, because I'm pretty sure that they either read my comment and were fuming, or they probably couldn't read my comment anyway because they were crying already. So, and it's like, I don't even want to imagine all of the family members that have passed away because of the virus and what could have been done differently if we didn't have a president that downplayed the virus even after he got the virus. How he politicized wearing a mask, and how it is a it's for public well-being, right? To wear a mask. It shouldn't be a political thing, but it was made. And this is the weird part I never understood. Why would you be on the side of not wearing a mask when that would just make your voters die? But then you think, who cares about...
That's just part of the frenzy.
Yeah, who cares, right? I just talked to a woman yesterday that said, oh, yeah, no, the 230,000 people who died, yeah, most of them just had like heart attacks and stuff. They didn't die from the actual virus. It was complications. I said, okay, you have a great day. Because if you believe that shit, that it's just like the flu, I'm sorry. I can't help you. I can't. You know? And then to see this happen and him win states that I know have suffered the hardest with unemployment and the virus, and they still voted for him. What kind of fucked up misinformation have they been fed to believe that? You know?
They are not impacted in any significant way. That's not to say that, let's even take the example that maybe somebody in their family died. Right? I don't even know. North Dakota. Okay.
Oklahoma.
Right.
Kentucky.
You have a family member that dies, and yet still are able to somehow bring yourself to vote for Trump, right? So what is that disconnect? You so fervently believe that what this man says is from the gospel, that...
we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah. That you will... It's almost like there's no empathy. Like, if it doesn't impact you, you're not able to connect to it. And I will say that, for me, for the longest time, was always, this is a constant theme of my life, 1 foot in one river and 1 foot in another river, where it's like, I am constantly on the verge of discovering what it might be like to experience somebody else's life and yet still be a white man at the same time, until I was not directly like my life, but through somebody else's, where their livelihood and circumstance were jeopardized. They would be gone. They would leave. They would be taken away. So I don't know why it needs to get to that point. Yeah.
It's my cricket time every day, like I said before. Like, there's somebody out there right now, Frank, that their loved one, father, mother, aunt, uncle, grandparent, brother, sister passed away when Trump had the virus. During the time when Trump had the virus for that week, right? Knowing that Trump got an experimental drug that no one else had gotten in the country, and their father, brother, sister, mother struggled for months trying to survive, and they passed away. And Trump gets in his armored car knowing he has the virus and goes on a parade to uplift the spirits of his supporters. Like, I cannot wait to be able to look back at this shit and for it to be really shown how crazy and fucked up the United States was for this. Like, you know how, like, you say, like, unforgivable? Unforgivable.
Yeah, it's unforgivable.
And that's why I say killing masses is what I'm going to do, because that's not going to happen again. Right?
I think the way that we do, one of the ways we do that, one of the things I'm interested in is again, these institutions that are already in place, make them better, build them up. And I really do, in that sense, have hope for that. And, but again, there's only so much we can do, right, to make them better. And whatever role I play, and ultimately will be minor, when we all need to participate.